Hello, welcome back to I Got Board Game. I
Oh
got
my
board
God, my game.
game. I am Ben,
I'm Daniel.
and
How's it
today
going?
this is our detailed review of
Oh,
Daniel's drawing.
air, land, and sea somewhere. Air, land, and sea with critters right here, which are drawn in.
Air,
Oh,
land, and sea critters at war, which I think we'll just refer to as critters at war from this point on. Yes, so hopefully you've watched our summary review of this. You can check that out in the description below. We'll link it there if you want to get an idea of how the game plays and just a quick look at our rating. But this is our detailed review where we'll go over the specific pros and cons we have that led us to the ratings we gave the game. And so just a quick reminder that this is a strictly two-player game of, I think basically it would be categorized as area control or area majority kind of game. You're trying to have the most strength on each side of the on your side of each of the locations or theaters of war. And so we'll just go straight into talking about our pros for the game, why we like this game. And actually, we can even remind people what our rating was right now, right? You gave it a
7.300000.
7.30. I gave it a 7. And so, what are your pros for the game that led you to such a rating?
So I think first and foremost, I was inspired. Or I like chess. I'm not good at it particularly, but I like the whole mind games and trying to read your opponent and trying to predict what they're trying to do. And so I think similar to the Duke, which you guys recently reviewed, there is that kind of chess-like. Oh, it's basically a war game, but there's that chess-like feel where you're trying to predict what your opponent's going to do and then try to counter and incorporate that in your I guess your strategy as you play the game. So I very much enjoyed that. And then I guess as we said in the I guess the shorter video, the like what do you call it? The intro, the
Summary.
summary review. There's the comboing potential comboing effect of the different cards, which kind of plays into the whole kind of predicting what your opponent do, and then seeing how you can exploit that to really utterly destroy them as number one supreme commander.
Daniel likes being Supreme Commander. That affected his score quite a
Mhm.
bit. I know, I get what you're saying though. Yeah, yeah. The kind of comparing it to chess. I think that kind of comes with it being a two-player game, right?
Mhm.
It's not quite like chess, obviously, not like
Mhm.
a lot of pieces on the board and not kind of a perfect information kind of game. But yeah, yeah, that back and forth and trying to outwit your opponent because it's two
Mhm.
players is done well. Yeah,
Mhm.
and that's something that does appeal to me about a lot of two-player games, that you don't
Mhm.
have to uh, basically plan for multiple people you're trying to outwit or beat, right? It's very
Mhm.
much just the other person. We both kind of have a general idea of the information out there in the game. Especially in this game, I think what makes it lighter is the fact that you don't play with all the cards in each
Mhm.
round or each battle, right? And so I think that lightness to the game makes it easier to jump into,
Mhm.
unlike games like chess where you have to learn all the pieces, what they do, and then
Mhm.
kind of start thinking of like all the possibilities of each move.
Yeah.
This one, each player just has their 6 cards, and you
Mhm.
both know there's 6 cards that are out, so there's that randomized aspect where it's like, I don't know exactly what my opponent has, but I can try to guess based on
Mhm.
the limited information of my 6 cards.
No, definitely. Yeah, I think like it's not like even though there's only six cards, I think there's still a good kind of potential uh, the variability and like how in your different potential move sets or I guess sets of moves and ordering whatnot. There's still that space, or I guess, of different combos you can do. Like just because you have say 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 cards, like the order in which you play them is really important because I remember playing a game against my dad and like they're definitely in it. Like I ended up winning, unsurprisingly, because I'm just that good. No, I'm kidding. But literally, like after I finished that round, I think I did go back and kind of try to back calculate. Oh, is there a scenario where he could have won? And there was, and so
Mhm.
just because there's 6 cards, which and it's a micro game, as we said earlier, in the other summary video, doesn't mean like there's like there are ways to, there's still a lot of variability in your potential how you play, and that can totally affect how you play. And so I like how the whole like it's not fixed by this, like the fact there's only 6 moves and 6 cards. There's still a good amount of replayability, and like things can change really quickly if you suck. Well, you don't suck. You're amazing.
Saying that about
No,
your dad.
no. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, the fact that there's the abilities that you mentioned that combo with each
Mm,
other on the different number cards, I think that's crucial, right? Because if
mm,
the whole deck is just air, land, and sea cards 1 through 6, right? If it had no abilities, you would very much just be like hoping you get dealt the higher cards, right?
yeah.
And then you would just kind
Mm,
of put them out, hoping that like you would do just like a minimal kind of
yeah.
outwitting your opponent of like
Mm,
maybe they don't have this number, so if I play these 2 here, it adds up to a bigger number than he can reach or something, you know.
definitely,
Yeah,
definitely.
that'd be like a very or a much too complicated version of
Version of
war,
war.
right? The
Yeah.
card game is like, let's play war, but on
Or but
3
3 times.
locations, like
Yeah.
no, that's all right. So
Yeah.
yeah, the abilities are crucial, and I think they're
Mhm.
done well, right? Like
Yeah.
especially the idea of the ones that let you flip cards,
Mm,
right? That kind of, I feel like that's like a little bit leaning into the theme. That
mhm.
helps, right? Like kind of like a surprise attack, right?
Yeah.
Like you put a card face down on one turn, and then your opponent's like,
Like,
maybe they'll do something with it, or maybe sometimes you want it to be face down, right?
yeah.
Because there is a card that like makes face down cards,
Mhm.
all your face down cards, like a
Worth
strength 4
more.
versus a
Yeah.
2. And so, you know, but it just really depends on if you have the card, if your opponent thinks you'll do that later on.
Mhm.
But yeah, a lot of times the whole flipping over, then it's like you get to play one card, flip over another one, and activate the ability of the
Mhm.
one you flipped, right?
Yeah.
That feels good because you like pulled off some planning there,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And I also think they good at like it's all on top of the fact that each card has an ability. I think across the different theaters like Air, Land, and Sea, it it's not all those, I guess all the 4s and all the 3s don't
Mm,
necessarily have the same abilities. Okay, the
mhm,
3s
mhm,
do, but like I guess what I'm trying to say is it's not just fixed, like all 6s are one thing, all 5, okay, they
mhm,
are.
mhm,
I'm just picking terrible numbers. Not all 5, yeah, not all the 5s have the same things, and
mhm.
not all the 4s. So I guess that also introduces additional complexities that make the game just a lot more fun than just, oh, you have a 4, okay, it has to be this one, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I do like that they
Mhm.
went to that extent of creating that difference, right? Because I think there's a lot of the things in this just small box game that they could have been lazier about, but
Mhm.
I'm glad they weren't, right? Like, yeah, if they just made all the numbers, the same abilities. The other thing is, and this is kind of going to another pro I mentioned quite a bit, is
Mhm.
the art, which
So cute.
Daniel thinks is so cute. So
Oh,
cute.
so cute.
Which I agree. And actually, like I think my camera's not capturing this well, but I remember seeing pictures of this game when I heard the first review of it, wanted to pre-order it, and it looked
Mm,
really colorful.
mm,
But then when I actually received the game to see that like it's actually very vibrant looking in
yeah.
person, which again is not captured so well on my camera right now, I think. Like I was glad about that.
Mhm,
That always feels good when a game looks as good as you think it would when you get it. But anyways, I mentioned the art because that's also something that's different on the cards, right? Air, land, and
mhm,
sea. Like air cards have like airships and such,
mhm.
as you would predict. But again, that's something they could have been very lazy about, right?
Yeah,
Just every 6 just has the same big kind of, I don't know, base or big kind
sure.
of battle carrier or something. But no, each one is different. And I'm gonna try to show some of the cards here, right? I think, yeah, like some of the artwork,
That is so
how
cute. And the
colorful it is,
others
and
are
how
all,
simple it is, like graphic
yeah.
design wise, right? Like it has like the name of what it is, which is
Mhm,
thematic, but then just this whole like top banner is green and a big number on it, so you immediately know the strength and which theater or location it can be played to. I think that just, it looks good and it's really functional. And then the only part that smaller text is if it has an ability. Then you kind of have to think it through a bit. But yeah, very clean. Like, oh, the art. I like a lot of the air art.
Yeah, they look so clean and so cute. Oh,
Yeah, you can see the different kinds of art. Yeah, pretty vibrant, but also cute with these kind of characters. And yeah, and what I mentioned, like different art for the same numbers. So twos will probably have different art. And even if it's like a small thing, like if it is the same art, which happens a few times, I think, it's like they change the color. So it matches like land and like white for air. So even then it's just like, okay, good. They still put in that kind of detail.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I will be honest, like since I'm just too busy being Supreme Commander, I don't, I guess tactically speaking, I don't pay attention to the art that much as I play, but I think they all set the tone of the game being like really lighthearted and like, well, except for me, I'm quite serious with this stuff. So, but like it does set the tone. It's quite nice and it's really adorable. But no, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that was a good move on them to like make it a lighter kind of a theme. So it's not like, oh, it's 2-player war, so we're like really seriously going at each other, and not everyone likes like old school war looking theme. So and I think the other pro I would mention is the whole system of forfeiting in the game, which was kind of new to experience. Like I think I've come across games where I've heard of it, maybe tried it, but it's a very uncommon mechanic in my experience. But it's very fitting in this kind of 2-player war themed experience, where like, yeah, the first and second player cards that you will be rotating between battles, it has this interesting idea of, you know, on your turn, you can choose to forfeit instead of keep playing out that battle because you think you're going to lose already. And it's like thematic with battle because you always hear about like maybe retreating early. So, you know, you might lose the battle, but you could still win the war, right? And so then the way that works is like when you choose on your turn to forfeit, depending on how many cards are left in your hand, that actually determines how many points your opponent will get. Where obviously the most points your opponent can get or you can get in a battle is 6, and the first player who gets to 12 wins the whole game, right? You sometimes might want to just retreat early, give your opponent maybe just, you know, just 3 points. Like, okay, no, let's just stop now. I played 3 cards, I have 3 left, let's just stop now and start a new battle, right? And so that does add just a small other layer to the planning you can do in the game, which is nice. It keeps it from feeling a little bit stagnant if you always have to play it out, even when you know you're gonna lose, right? Which is what actually happens. I think is kind of a common feeling for people who come from maybe like video games. Like there's just times where like, yes, this battle's over, let's just keep going. You know, I don't want to have to go through all the steps just to lose still, you know.
And I think it does. I think it's also good for like, because there's that random, it's not like a, I think you said complete knowledge, or like where you know all the cards. So because a third of the cards are out or unknown, like you might just have really crappy cards that round, and like and if you feel like you can't win out of that, you aren't, the luck aspect, though important, an important part of the game, is less important because you can just, not prematurely, you can forfeit earlier on, and your loss is not as great as if you played it all through. I mean, it's not, I mean, there's still the luck element, but it is a little bit reduced with, or it's not reduced, but its effects are a little reduced during the gameplay with that ability to forfeit earlier than playing it out and losing. So I really, I appreciate that as well, even though definitely hadn't how to use it myself, but
I mean, and that is something that it seems like would only work in a 2-player game, right? Like if you had like 3 players, like 1 player forfeiting is like they're just choosing to be out of this one. Like it'd be kind of weird, I feel like, right?
Why'd you bother playing?
So it's fitting that it has it in this 2-player kind of format. And so those are our pros. And so moving on to our cons, things that we might not have liked as much about the game. Daniel?
I was thinking maybe you should be in this. I'm too busy waiting. I think
That's what he means when he keeps saying he's busy being Supreme Commander, which is just the name on the other side of the
the playing
reference
cards.
card.
Um,
This cute rat. This is you. This is you,
oh yeah,
Daniel.
that's me.
You're
I'm missing
Supreme
a leg.
Commander.
I'm missing a leg and part of my ear is missing. That's why I'm putting on these headphones. I will say it does get a little repetitive over time. I don't know how, I mean, it is a short game, so by nature you can't have that much dynamic. It's quite limited with 18 cards, like what can you do? It does it well, but it does get a little repetitive over time, and it can, like, I think I rated it 7.3000. I think if I gave it some more time, unfortunately, I feel like the rating was dropped just because it just gets a lot really repetitive. I mean, the shortness of the game also helps in that making it a little less, I guess, repetitive. But again, you're doing the same things over and over. And at some point, you're just like, oh, I see my 6, 1, 3, 5, like your cards, and you're like, oh, I know what to do already. And then it's not as entertaining. But that's kind of, I think, a downside for all shorter games because they're all limited by there's fewer components. So what can you do with so many components? There's only so many things, even if you do it well, but that it dies down, its appeal dies down more quickly. So I think I would say one of the cons is it does get a little bit repetitive. Replayability is not terrible, but as you play over time, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's maybe what comes to mind for me the most, and why I mentioned in our summary review video that I was kind of debating on my rating for the game, where the 7 I gave it, I think is kind of predicting a little bit of over time how much I'll actually want to play it. And it is because of what you're saying, like yeah, there is that variety and the comboing that feels good, but like that is what you're doing every time, right? And so if you play like a handful of games in a row, I think that would be like enough for the day,
Yeah.
you know, because then you're just doing that same process again of like one card at a time to set up my combo, or, you know, maybe set up a combo, hopefully. But like, I think that's kind of the level of depth that the game goes to, right? How you're setting it up, but then you're just doing that each time, back and forth, one card at a time. And so yeah, like, just I was imagining like, yeah, if we just played a handful, it's like, okay, I'm good with this game for a while, you know, like that's quite a bit of the same, doing the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so the repetition. The other thing that comes to mind for me is the production. I mentioned the art is amazing, and I think the quality of the components is fine. I think it's just like, and this is minor, but like the inside, you can see this is what the game looks like. This is what it comes with, except I sleeve the cards myself. But it's just kind of, I don't know, just kind of a cheap, flimsy insert, and it just functions. It fits everything just fine, but I don't know. I think like everything else, like the box feels thick. The coins are like nice punch outs. The cards are good quality, but then why is this like insert kind of
Because I made it.
flimsy, you know?
I
And it's a
made
little big for what this game actually needs, right? Like if I didn't have these coins in a bag, like these cards are sleeved already, which like increases the thickness of it. But even then, like I could have just put all the coins just on top of the cards here, like I technically could right now. Then like, you know, this is like a whole section of the box that I don't even actually need. So I mean, that's just more like, could they have made the game in a smaller box and make it even more like, you know, portable? Like, sure. But I guess this is also kind of more of a standard small box size in the board game industry. So it's understandable, but very minor thing for me. Just the actual production inside could have been, there's just kind of empty space.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, there's not that much more to be said. I think it's just the potential repetitiveness over time. But, and I guess, yeah, I was too busy playing, so I didn't notice the box. But no, I think it's a valid point. Maybe it's also because it looks cuter. That's why they made it big, like just so this it looks.
Yeah, so
bigger.
the
You can
art's
actually see
actually
it
there.
for
Yeah,
display. But I
that's what I
mean,
was.
yeah, maybe. I don't
And
know.
then I guess I would say like one other small con that you might have come across too, because I know you played it with your sister and your dad, is someone who's played the game before will
Oh
have
yeah,
a leg up on the other
a
person
huge
who's
leg
new
up.
to the game, right? It's not
Mm,
that you'll for sure win, because that still comes down to what cards you got, but
mhm.
you obviously have a better idea of the planning you can do of,
Oh, definitely.
I can put this card here and then put this card here so it doesn't cover the other card, and then play this one to flip this and then move
Mhm,
that, where then I think rules wise, the little part that could be confusing is people is you basically have to make sure you pay attention to the actual wording on the
yes,
cards
yes,
of their abilities, because it's interesting when we played originally, like, because we were the
that's
first ones to play
true.
together. uh I could tell maybe
Some of the
from
word.
you,
I
uh
lost.
no. I meant like that you would make assumptions on how
Yeah,
certain abilities worked, right? Which is
yes.
understandable for a lot of people who are kind of getting into board games, right? Like if a
Mhm.
card says like move another card, you're like, okay,
Okay,
I
I
can
move.
only move mine. It's like, well, no, it doesn't
Mhm,
say, like if it doesn't say actually just move your cards, that means you can actually move your opponent's cards, right?
mhm,
And so you just have to pay attention to that wording, which then
mhm,
gives you more of the flexibility that the game can have. But yeah, you just want
mhm,
to make sure that you follow those small details in the rules so that
mhm,
you don't miss out on what the cards can actually do.
mhm,
So all of that, those kind of small details to pay attention to, and the kind of planning that can happen with the game, that definitely gives a leg up to someone who's already played the game versus
mhm.
someone who's new.
Yeah. I mean, there's also, yeah, I think on top of it, yeah, I think also terminology, I think it's just important to look in the instruction booklet, whatever, like, because I think initially I think they use uncovered, which I guess
Mhm.
now after playing a couple times makes sense, but I think they use words that may or may not, they're, I don't want to say it's unintuitive because now it is to me, but again, just, I guess, just kind of piggybacking off of what Ben said, yeah, you just have to make sure you understand those things, the, I guess, terminology, and I guess, yeah, some cards affect both players and not just necessarily you. So being familiar with that, and so there's a definitely a language dependence, a little bit, a very small bit. I
Mhm.
bring that up because there may be people that play that aren't native English speakers, and so that will definitely needing to look at the cards, reading the small little text. But I think that's any game with a lot of text, and so and that's not necessarily a con, but just something to note and point out. But yeah,
Yeah. Like, yeah, you mentioned the uncovered or covered
mhm,
keyword because you're playing cards in
was on
order.
top.
So then the newest card covers the previous one. So then
Mhm.
the previous card is not uncovered anymore
Covered.
if any ability affects uncovered cards.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
exactly.
that's something to kind of get used to when you play the
Agreed.
game.
Yeah.
Uh, and so, yeah, so those are our pros and cons for Critters at War. And so, just to recap our scores, Daniel gave a 7.30,
7.3000.
adding more zeros now, are you? And I gave it a 7. Still a good game, one that I
Mhm.
mean would enjoy to play with Daniel, even though I lost. Keep
Mm,
losing to him now. Supreme Commander. But it'd be great to play with him again sometime. So yeah, definitely
mhm.
not a bad game, and especially one to check out if you are looking for like this kind of light 2-player game
Yeah.
to get into. And so with that, that is our detailed review. If you found this video interesting, helpful, hope you'll share it with friends, family, people you play board games with. Consider subscribing to this channel and following us at Instagram at I
Yeah.
Got Board Game. And until next time, we'll see you then. Bye.
I